Turning Red is Pixar's 25th film, and it tells the story of Maitreyi, a 13-year-old girl who is torn between being her mother's obedient daughter and the chaos of her youth. And if that wasn't enough, if she gets too excited, she turns into a big red panda. So we have Pixar's 25th film, and a lot of people always say that Pixar is kind of meh, and they haven't been as good as they used to be. But I just look at the last couple of films that we got in Pixar as Toy Story 4. I know people didn't want it in the beginning, but that turned out to be one of the best Toy Story films in the franchise. Then we just recently, a couple of years ago, got one of the best Pixar films in my opinion, Soul. And yeah, Pixar isn't perfect. They always have some kind of films that doesn't get a critical response like The Good Dinosaur or any of the Cars movies, but they made 3 of them, so I guess somebody likes them. And to me, Turning Red is top tier Pixar for me. I know it's getting a lot of weird reception. A lot of people are saying it's not for me, it's not relatable because I'm not a female. But I gotta say, I might have to give this a, half point. It gets a half point knocked down of it because this movie makes me feel old. This movie is set in 2002, and now I'm just having flashbacks and getting worried because movies are going to be setting themselves in the early 2000s, and that's when I was growing up. And I grew up in a time where they were portraying like 80s movies, 90s movies, and now they're going to do 2000s. I knew it was coming, but I don't know if I'm ready for it. But I love this setting. This is so nostalgic for me, to the Tamagotchis, to even the setting. I know this is in Canada, like the actual place that it's set in Canada, but it feels like San Francisco to me. I grew up in the Bay Area. I'm still currently in the Bay Area, so a lot of the settings and like the Chinatown that they have here, I can totally resonate with because I've seen similar stuff around San Francisco. I also relate with the group of friends that Maitreyi has, an eclectic group of friends of different races, nationalities, and personalities. It just really feels like something that I grew up in. Now, Maitreyi's friends don't get really that much in-depth character development, but I think that's okay when you have such strong lead characters in Maitreyi and her mother. The friends can just have their own Disney Plus series because we already know that's going to happen. I also love the fact that since this is set in the early 2000s, this is the boy band craze. Kind of reminds me of the craze of like the NSYNC versus Backstreet Boys versus 98 Degrees. Well, let's be honest, nobody listen to 98 Degrees. But I just love that this film took the approach of making original music, making an original pop band, and they could have easily, this is Pixar, this is Disney, they could have easily shelled out $100 million to get some licensed music, some copyrighted music, get NSYNC in there, get Backstreet Boys, but they didn't do that. They created their own soundtrack, they created their own band, and I really appreciate that. The biggest thing for me is that this movie is just relatable. I like the message that they have in here. Even though that I am a male, a black male, I'm not an Asian little girl, and I still related with this film. For me, the biggest message and the takeaway that I take from this film is just to be yourself and don't let your parents dictate your future for you. And this movie does a good job of showing that it could be hard, and sometimes when you're a kid, your parents put so much pressure onto you, and sometimes you feel like you have to do what they say, and you kind of mold your personality into like, I want to do what they say. I want to do what my mom and my dad say and what they have set my life out to be. I think all of us as kids have kind of struggled with this at one point or at one level or another. It's just you want to go do your own thing. And this message is not just for the younger audience or people like me, millennials that grew up in the early 2000s. It's also for the older generation, like somebody of my mom's age or even older. And that's one of the best things about Pixar films is if you look really close enough, you can see some really deep meaning and deep messages in this film. Parents might see that maybe they have to take a second look and maybe they're being a little bit too harsh on their kids. And, maybe let their kids be able to make mistakes and go out into the wild, trust them a little bit. But like I said, this film is also targeted to an older audience, even older than I would say my parents' generation, more like my grandparents' generation, where you even see that the trickle down, like trauma, if you will, I don't know if I want to go that harsh of a word, but I'm gonna use it. But you can even see that the trauma that the grandparents pass down to their children are actually doing the same thing to their current kids. That's the message that I got from the film, but of course other people can get different messages. I've been seeing on Twitter that other people are interpreting it differently, and that's totally cool. The best thing about movies and TV shows and books and all that stuff, video games, is that we can all interpret it differently, and it can have different meanings for all of us. And they're all correct, because if that's the feeling that you got from the film, then who am I or who is anybody else to tell you different? Overall, guys, I think that Turning Red is top tier Pixar. I don't care what anybody thinks, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you like this one? Did you hate this one? Is there something in this film that you didn't really like that turned you off? I know there's some discourse online that there's something that people don't really particularly like with this Pixar film. Let me know in the comments down below. And guys, if you like Turning Red and you want to see something similar, we're going to stick with the Pixar theme here, and you should definitely go check out the movie Soul, as well as the movie Coco. Also, guys, don't forget to check out my Twitter so you can stay up to date with my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, guys, keep watching movies.